Today we're going to talk about a topic that has definitely been, important to me recently, which is nuance. The complete lack of civil discourse within our society and our culture right now. It's a damn shame. And I just want to talk about it. If anybody's interested in having that conversation and, providing feedback or engaging with me, in that way, would love to hear it. If, like I said, if you haven't been in chat before, would love to get your feedback. I am going to have chat on screen. So, like I said, really excited about it. For whatever reason, you can't necessarily read chat. I'll move things around a little bit. Again, still kind of playing around with things, but this is the kind of the format going forward. So I thought about it. I really did think about what is it that I want to do with these streams. And honestly, I love having good conversation. I love writing, and I love good conversation and good dialogue, and I think that's honestly what we're lacking in today's society. So that's why, honestly, that's the topic for today, which is civil discourse and its complete obliteration within our culture and our society here, and it's really a problem. So I wanted to talk about that, and I really want to talk about a little nuance within conversation, because I think nuance has been ejected. The topic of today's conversation, and really I think I have a bunch of, I have like 6 pages here written. I might do a little bit off the cuff, but I definitely wanted to have a good amount of this like actually written down, and so I did. And then we'll also get to Twitter, because I do have some examples of things that I'm talking about, why I think they're a detriment to conversation, why I think they're a detriment to any sort of progress or us moving forward. I think people airing their grievances and trying to look at a way, hey, this is something I think we can do to solve this problem. Yeah, I think it always has to come back to some sort of solution. I think being solution focused and solution based and solution forward is always going to be better for us. It's just the best policy overall. Not just this country, but the West, and I think in a lot of other places in the world, we're experiencing and facing a lot of turmoil, a lot of issues. And I think on being online, the internet itself, social media itself is causing problems for us. So let's jump into it. Nuance in particular we're going to talk about, but really the main thing here that I want to discuss is civil discourse. And just to do a quick definition here, nuance as it is defined is a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. Okay, so I'm talking about subtle differences here. That's something that I think we tend to forget about. I think we forget about the little details, the minute details. So I think that's important to capture and discuss. But really, civil discourse has been in a really bad place. The ability for people to have a conversation without flinging insults into each other's faces has become nearly impossible. And when it comes to online discourse, if it isn't people, actually having these conversations, whether it's, online or whatever, what have you, the comment sections of tweets, videos on Instagram, whatever it is, have proven this fact time and time again, that recently we have had a really hard time communicating with each other. People are unable to have honest conversation with each other without flaming the other side or both flaming each side. There's a serious problem with simply expressing your ideas nowadays, and I think that's really kind of scary. I think, especially in America, especially in the West, where we put such an importance on freedom of expression and freedom to do the things that you want to do and pursue the life that you want to lead. I think that's extremely it's so fundamental for the way that we live our lives in the West, and I think not taking that for granted, I think is just really important. The ability to express yourself is so important. Because there's people that can't. There's people that don't have that ability, and we have to remember that. It's always something that needs to be fought for. And not only people are more afraid to speak up and speak their minds out in the open because they know there could be actual real-world consequences, but they're actively searching for alternative outlets to anonymously express their views. This is leading to greater and greater segmentation of society. which is not necessarily a great thing. If we're continuing to segment ourselves in these tedious ways, we're not gonna to last too much longer as this particular entity, which is scary to think about. We're basically pushing people to less and less savory avenues, both in the real world and online, just so they can have the freedom to discuss their beliefs and opinions without being ostracized or insulted at every turn. This is an objectively bad situation to be in. Now, I'm not saying that having an alternative outlet or having alternative outlets or platforms is an inherently bad thing. I think it's actually generally a very good thing. It's people being ostracized and turned outcast. There's something almost primal in us. I was listening to, I believe it was Sam Harris, there was a guest on talking about studies being done about public humiliation or embarrassment, and it produces a sort of like instinctual fear in us, and it creates very serious harm in a lot of cases. Being outcast or shunned or humiliated publicly is can, in most situations, especially in the past, not necessarily in the last 50 years, but pretty much the entirety of time, being ostracized basically meant death, which is horrible to think about. But like I said, there's like this instinctual fear, and it creates a lot of harm. And just to clarify, when people do have really bad ideas, we should tell them they have really bad ideas, and if they do something unforgivable, they should be humiliated. I'm not saying that people that do actual harm and do a lot of harm shouldn't be humiliated and ostracized and taken over someone's knee in the public view. I absolutely think that that's the case, and that should happen, but that's not always what we're talking about. And I think when we're talking about civil conversation, we need to be just really careful about that, because pushing people out can be really dangerous. But again, I'm not saying that people that are deserving of shame should be let off easy. We just need to be careful. A lot is welcome to the internet. Fuck what, good job. This is just how it goes. Is this your first day here or something? And in some cases, it's completely correct. It is not, nor should it be, mine or anyone else's goal to control what someone else says or does on the internet. In my view, there are very few things that people should care about when it comes to, what others do and say on the internet. This is a losing battle. You can't control people, and I'm not the one that's gonna fight it. It's a waste of time. However, I really do take issue when problems online turn into problems in the real world, and this is important. This is something that I care about, and I know this is going to sound a little contradictory to literally what I just said 10 seconds ago, but in a lot of ways, even online spaces, do mimic the real world. So by transitive property, I kind of care about that too. But what I've realized is basically we've accepted this bullshit behavior from too many people for too long. If you go to comment section in basically any place on YouTube, or if you pop into people's chat, you'll see the nastiest shit you've ever heard. And it's just raunchy and rough. I mean, we've all been on the internet for quite a long time, so it's not easy to spot, or not difficult to spot, how horrible certain comment sections are. It's a dark place, and it can be horrible. At this point, though, it's like, it is all out war in a lot of cases, but at this point, it's like we've just accepted this behavior from people, and I don't understand why. It's just like, no, we're just going to accept this. This is fine. I take issue with that, and I'll get to that in a moment, because most people take the stance of like I said, first time on the internet, do you not know how this works? People are shitty on the internet. Get over it. And I'm not saying no, in some cases, but in most cases, this is total bullshit. Not only is the behavior undoubtedly spilling into people's real lives, the behavior online is totally out of control. There are people that are completely out of control. They've been raised on the internet their entire lives, and some behavior is completely irredeemable. There's a serious problem with social literacy and civility when it comes to online discourse, fucking obviously. But this is important. I don't see a way forward because we're gonna keep moving more digital. There's gonna be more and more lives, more and more of our life online or connected digitally in some way. I just don't see a path forward that isn't a lot more, civil. Like I said, it has to be more civil. The problem here is that of course the internet is uncivil. I completely understand that. This whole thing, when it comes to the internet and social media and even Twitch, this thing is an active experiment. Nobody knew how the internet would turn out or how social media was going to turn out. No one knew the kinds of impacts and implications that came with these heavy and these powerful tools. So of course discourse is fucked. It was inevitable. So many people fail to understand or may not even consider this point when it comes to the inception of the internet and then social media. But there were no parameters, no rule books or guides or history lessons for us to go on. We just made this ship up as we went, and we're continuing to make this shit up as we go. I think people are much more intentional today. It's hard to say that without laughing. I think when I say certain people, I mean people that are running a lot of these platforms. It may not be the case, but it feels that way. I think they were more intentional today than they were 10 years ago. But the sudden emergence of intentionality hasn't always proven useful or proven to be good. Intentional changes and rules applied to the internet after the fact. We applied these rules and did all these things and trying to look at all these the impacts of these things after the fact, instead of trying to be proactive in some way and trying to predict what the hell could happen and how could we prepare for it. Our predictions weren't going to be correct, but we have to prepare for some of this shit. The fact that we just fly by the seat of our pants is kind of insane in a lot of ways, and I think with these types of tools, I think it is a little bit nuts. The fact of the matter is the government's inability to regulate anything has been well documented, let alone a novel utility like the internet and then later on social media. These extremely powerful tools and products were just unleashed into the public, and we've been trying to pick up the pieces kind of since then. Some things have been great. Some things have been great, no doubt. And this is really where the story starts, honestly, right? The inception of the internet and then later on social media. The internet has opened, of course, endless knowledge and possibilities for people that they never would have had without it. So there has been a lot of good done, of course. The productivity increases and progress made over the last 20 years alone are remarkable. There's no doubting that at all. The amount of good we've been able to do just through the sheer number of things we've been able to accomplish with these tools really is amazing and should not go understated. I'm not saying that. However, the negative ramifications were not explored nearly enough, early enough from the very beginning, and that we're only just now starting to really deep dive into some of these negative impacts from the internet and social media. And when I say they, I mean corporations and nations like built these tools, because in a lot of ways there's people and investors, and then it's giant corporations and the government, obviously, nations really. These people really have only recently started taking these concerns seriously. That's insane. It's so short. It's just so short-sighted. It's really unbelievable. A very similar parallel to draw here is the one between this moment and artificial intelligence. We are treating AI very much like we treated the internet and social media upon its emergence, only thinking about the profit margins and not enough about the downstream effects. And this will be to our detriment, as it always is. And of course, by us, I mean, us, plebeians here, the peasants. Of course, we are the ones that are going to suffer for it. We're the ones that are going to have to pay the price for complete inaction, ineptitude, and the inability to be proactive and be forward thinking. The only thing that's kind of different is I think the emergence of AI is absolutely more dangerous in a lot of ways. The emergence of AI basically means that people's jobs are going to go away once we get to the point where AGI is real. Now experts are saying we're 10, 15 years or so away from that, but it could happen at any point, honestly. People do say that we're quite a ways away from that. These things are a problem, and the fact that our government and nations and corporations aren't forward-thinking and and they're not thinking about what the downstream effects are, or they are thinking about them or they're too late, or that when it really comes down to it, when decisions are made, the decision is always going to be in favor of profit over any type of concern or safety or general good for the public. That's just kind of where we're at. But what I do find really fascinating about this situation, and it's something to think about, is in the short term and even in the medium term, these types of strategies do tend to work for companies and even governments and nations, right? These kind of short-term strategies, people put up with bullshit. They'll buy whatever product, they'll put up with that, whatever you kind of throw at them. But at the end of the day, it isn't always great. However, in the short and medium terms, when it comes to consumers and citizens, they tend to not be in our favor, right? They tend to not be in our best interest in the short term. But again, we generally put up with it. But in the long term, even if the outcome is poor for the majority, which it can be, and sometimes is. I don't want to necessarily say often is, but it can be bad for consumers and for citizens in the long term. I'm not saying that's not the case, but even if it is, what I really do find fascinating is that it rarely ends well for the corporation or the government or the big guy, as it were. I don't think that they are benefiting in the long term. I think once you continue to fuck people over, they are not going to be loyal to you forever. You continue to bend people over. You continue to be careless. People are forgiving, but only for so long. They'll put up with your bullshit early on, but if you continue to fuck them, they don't seem to care for that very much. You get a public shift in sentiment, right? And, a lot of times it can be even worse than that. That's really, to put it mildly, a public shift in sentiment. In certain cases, of course, when it comes to governments or nations, you get a full-on revolt. People won't buy your product or listen to the government or even actively try to overthrow it. I fear we're reaching a boiling point when it comes to, in this country in particular, when it comes to online and even in-person discourse. I fear we are headed for a total catastrophe when it comes to the emergence of AI, as I did mention before. Our central issue, as I see it, and it's us, it's governments, it's politicians, is that we tend to ignore the negatives of any given situation until it's either hanging by a thread or it's too late. Human beings are good at that, just ignoring the bad and kind of seeing the good. And when incentives align with goals, it can culminate in a complete disregard for decency and the common good. And that's where we are. Someone, creates an interesting product or has a good idea. Incentives provide a framework for what that someone may or may not do in pursuit of that goal. And if the incentives and the morals don't align, you get a less than ideal outcome. People take shortcuts. They toss aside what they know, is right because it'll secure them a financial future, and it creates a toxic and downright unpleasant environment for everyone. We have people throwing away their dignity and not even noticing it just to get the bag. I mean, think about that. We have people, and we are watching people throwing away their dignity and not even noticing. We have people throwing away their dignity in so many cases, and they're not even noticed. They don't even care. You have people just don't give a shit that they're like, that they are acting like absolute animals, and they don't give a fuck. What is going on? what is going on? When we really think about it, we have reached the point where younger people have grown up on the internet their entire lives, watching and listening to people who don't even recognize their shameless and abhorrent behavior. These people are becoming adults, and this is their normal. Like, what are these kids supposed to do? Seriously, what are these kids supposed to do? Like, what are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to navigate this bullshit? How are they supposed to figure out what is right, what is not, and it can be subjective in a lot of ways, but what is good for them? What's the path that they should take? When you have fucking assholes on the internet being completely shameless, doing the most ridiculous bullshit to get views, and they don't realize the impact they have on people. They don't, especially young kids, they don't realize the impact that they have. And it's a shame. People like, I'm gonna name names. I'm sorry. People like Adin Ross acting like a fucking toddler on his stream, and actually being illiterate. Like, what is going on? Or iShowSpeed screaming in almost every video, like someone shot him with HGH and then ran his balls through a paper shredder. What the fuck is this? Who is this guy? What is he doing? Why is he screaming so much? His throat's gotta hurt from all that yelling. Like, kids are growing up watching other kids run around the world with millions of dollars and act like fucking children. That's where we are. I mean, that's literally where we are. These kids have millions of dollars, and there's such a problem is, like, they don't have any guidance. They don't have any idea the type of impact they're having on the people that watch their streams and care about their content and listen to the words they say. There's such a lack of intention. There's such a lack of intention with so much of this bullshit. There's just such a lack of, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I care about. I mean, I understand when you're really young, like iShowSpeed and Adin, they're young, I don't mean to fucking completely bag on them, although they really need to get it together. It's definitely difficult, but at the end of the day, you need to have good friends, and you need to have somebody that is going to hold you accountable, and I don't think these people do, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. So there's kind of a few layers here. There's multiple layers. I'll probably talk about a couple of them, but basically here's what you got. You have the streamers themselves, right? A lot of very young, impressionable people themselves making millions of dollars to speak to an audience of what is essentially high school and college-aged kids, right? And it's very apparent that a lot of them have no guidance, as I just said. Adin in particular, I don't know about Speed, but Adin in particular seems to kind of do he's not a child, but I mean, come on. He's very young, and it is very, very obvious that he is extremely impressionable. Extremely impressionable. It's very obvious. I mean, I've seen multiple times where he's, I've watched clips and seen just like a little bit flip through some videos where he's talking to Andrew Tate. It's very clear that he's seeking some sort of male guidance in a way, and I hope he's able to get it, and I hope he has some good friends that'll be honest with him and tell him like it is, and be real with him. That shit's important. Same with Speed, but I don't know if they keep acting like buffoons. People aren't obviously telling them hard enough. But at the end of the day, when it comes to these people, right? They have no one close to them, it seems, or in their circle holding them accountable. And it's hard to hold them accountable when they're making so much money. People don't want to listen in general, let alone if they're making, millions of dollars by the age of 20. So these kids themselves are very impressionable and are molded by the environment that they're in, which in a lot of ways is they're able to do some incredible stuff, no doubt, but they're also with a lot of young, impressionable people that also have a lot of money and don't have a lot of wisdom. And I think that's kind of what's lacking. Now, I don't expect people to just get wise overnight, or just inject themselves with some sort of wisdom pill. But people gotta grow up in certain cases, and especially if you have a huge platform like that, I really do believe you have a certain responsibility to not influence your community and the people that watch your stream to be fucking assholes and to care about things that matter. Again, I know what it was like to be young, and I can't necessarily tell you that if I was that age, I wouldn't be partying and doing whatever, and going out and all that. But I would hope that if that were the case, and I did have that much money, I would have people around me saying, hey, you gotta, like, just fucking pump the brakes a little bit, like, pump the fucking brakes. Like I said, they're being molded by this environment. So the other layer that you have are the kids watching the streams, right? They're watching people as old as they are saying and doing wild shit on camera in front of thousands of people, and it has emboldened them to do the same. They have been given the gumption to do what they're seeing, because they believe that if they get it on camera and they put it on YouTube and they get views, they'll be in the same position. And in some cases, right, that does happen, but it's few and far between. There's a lot more that I can say about this, definitely. But what's important to know here is that the situation has led to our current position, or at least partly, at least for online when it comes to this. And our current position as it relates to, civil, honest, and open online discourse is shit. This current position we're all in is shit. I'm not blaming the death of civil discourse on young streamers, or streamers in general, or their viewers. The impact is their impact really is just kind of one piece to this puzzle. I believe that fundamental and underlying issues that generally plague our society are mostly to blame. Things like inept and incompetent governments, dishonest and openly biased media companies, social media in basically all its forms, unaccountable politicians, just see inept fucking government, Hollywood's obsession with race and gender and sexual orientation and religious affiliation, religion itself and its outdated and harmful ideologies and the people that peddle them, and of course companies and corporations that have convinced everyone that they must be slaves to their occupation if they want to survive, and by setting totally unrealistic standards for the modern American dream in the year 2023. And I could go on and on about this. There's seemingly endless factors at play when it comes to the erosion of our civil discourse, but obviously all of these things are at play. Do I think that streamers and streaming are the most important? No. I think that that was kind of mentioned because it's relevant to what I'm doing, and it's relevant to kind of the online discourse part of it. They're just a downstream. That's just a downstream impact. That's just a downstream effect. That isn't nearly the root cause. That is a downstream effect of all the bullshit. It's honestly, we're getting to the point where I think people in the past, before really Obama and then Trump, I think even more, people didn't really care that much about politics. Nobody really gave a shit. They just kind of let it do the thing in the background. And as long as government and politics weren't intervening or getting in between people's lives and people's, what they wanted to do. Sorry, let me fix this and put it up a little bit. As long as they didn't fuck with people didn't really care about the government. People didn't really care about the president. I miss the days when I didn't have to think about the president. I have to think about politics, because it's an absolute, like, fucking shit show. It's a bloodbath there, and it's really gotten to this point through a lot of things. But I think social media is definitely the top culprit. I don't think there's any doubt in that. I'm not really sure who or what should receive the bulk of the blame, and honestly, even contemplating what it would take to truly reconcile with the public at this point kind of makes my head spin, so I'm not even gonna go there. But what I do think is important is some sort of course correction or at least attempting a course correction, especially in the case of civil discourse or just discourse in general. How do we get out of this hole we've been placed in, willingly or unwillingly? I'm not entirely sure myself, but I think a good place to start is with honesty and good faith arguments. So that's kind of where I wanted to talk about kind of some solutions. You know, in many cases, I have a hard time believing that certain people actually believe the things they say and are instead just saying things they think will elicit the greatest reaction. Remember what I said about incentives? You know, remember what I said about young people making millions of dollars by acting like fools on a live stream? Like, people make money by doing wild shit. This isn't news for today, right? This is how things work. So it isn't difficult to understand or difficult to believe that people are going to act out on camera to try to get clicks, to try to make some money. It's about incentives. It's not that difficult to understand, but you know, it's causing people to say outlandish and even obviously false things just to increase their impressions, their views, their likes. Now, I don't think this is the case with everyone. I do think there are some truly deranged and downright confused individuals that really do believe the nonsense that they spout in a lot of cases, but I don't think that's always the case. But if you incentivize people to do reckless, rude, obnoxious, or dangerous bullshit, and you incentivize them with money, they're going to do those things. And honestly, in a lot of cases, I don't even fucking blame them. I mean, if someone believes that if they start being like annoying or rude or start doing, you know, they start just dropping, you know, Mentos in Coke bottles and start spraying people with Coke everywhere, that's going to make them rich and famous, you're going to get a lot of people in the streets spraying people with fucking Coke bottles and dropping Mentos all over the place because they're incentivized to do it, right? And if there's a chance that they can help themselves and their family or secure a better future for themselves or gain, you know, insane popularity online, there will always be someone willing to do it. And now, because these things have been totally normalized, everyone's doing it. There is an influx of people being assholes all over the place. Incentives have consequences. Even something like a good incentive, which somebody would consider money to be a good, you know, that's like, oh, it's positive, they get to get some money, right? But if you're incentivizing someone with money to be a jackass, this is not good. This is not a good thing. I think people tend to forget about how easy it is for somebody to lose themselves because they know it might help them out. You know, to do something that they normally wouldn't do because it's going to get them ahead in some way. You know, incentives have consequences. You know, if you don't scrutinize incentives, they get out of hand. And this is where we are, and this is where we have been for quite some time. Certain incentives have eroded the moral and logical fabric of our country, of our culture, of our society, and this has led to the complete degradation of civil discourse. Complete degradation. I mean, if you go anywhere, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, it doesn't even matter. Go anywhere. Go to YouTube. The comment section are a hellhole. I mean, go anywhere. The discourse has, and that's just a little bit online. In a lot of cases, though, even in person, things have gotten, even within my own friend group, I know this is anecdotal. This is totally anecdotal, but it's still important to share, have gotten more hostile over the last 8-10 years. Now, people can blame Trump, right? People can blame Biden. People can blame the right. People can blame the left. The honest truth, we can blame whoever the fuck we want. Like I said, Biden, Trump, left, right, independents, Ralph Nader. We can blame whoever the fuck we want. But it really does fall on each and every one of us to just be fucking better. To just be honest when speaking with one another. Whether it's online or IRL, we can blame whatever or whoever we want. But at the end of the day, if we do not expect better, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to improve. if we don't raise our standards collectively when it comes to government and politics and media and Hollywood and education and corporations and religion and public discourse, we will continue to be served the shit we so desperately seem to love, and will ask for more. Like, the problem that I see in a lot of ways is that the status quo just continues to persist. It just consists, it just go, and people fucking hate it. I don't understand. And I think people can make changes with their wallet, with votes, with public discourse, with saying the things that you think are important to say. It's just crazy that people have come to accept this. People have just come to accept the way things are, and they're just, if it doesn't necessarily directly impact them on a day-to-day or second-to-second basis, it's like people don't really care. Public discourse in particular, especially online, this really does fall on us. The last thing anybody wants, and I really do believe this, and if you disagree with this, I'd love to hear your reasoning, but I hope you really rethink this. But the last thing anybody really wants is for the government to start making decisions and rules around public discourse. If that ever happens in this country and in the West, which it feels like we're kind of creeping in that direction, unfortunately, we as a society have lost. If we need government to regulate our conversations because people are too stupid and or dishonest to regulate themselves, we're fucked. Just plain and simple, totally fucked. Honestly, you can't rely on government for anything. Least of all, right? Our government. But, hey, they keep us safe, right? Fuck out of here. So what can you do? What are some solutions? What are some things that you can do, that I can do, that all of us can take part in and take on to improve the discourse, right? That's kind of where this focus has been, is the nuance within conversation and improving discourse in whatever ways possible. So what can you do, right? Be more honest when having discussions with people, whether online or in person, even if it's with someone you dislike or disagree with. I think especially when it's with someone you dislike or disagree with. You have to be honest with them. You have to give them the facts and if they tell you something, they give you information that you didn't know, and they give you a source, you should go check that out, and you should give them the benefit of the doubt that they're telling you something. You don't have to necessarily believe what they're saying, but you should be at least willing to have an open and honest conversation with people, and be honest about what you know, and be honest about what's true with your position and your opinions. I agree with that, Solus, completely. I think people do need to be okay being vulnerable, 100%. That is absolutely a huge issue with this. There is no doubt in my mind. Even if you don't agree with someone's take, we should take the time to listen to them and not make debates black and white. Life is messier and grayer than that. That's the name of the title of this stream, brother. Nuance. That is kind of the little piece of that, right? Is nuance, is being able to look at the minor differences. It is so much grayer than that. I could not agree with that more. People have taken conversations, have taken opinions, have taken topics, and have made them, you're either with us or you're against us. It's insanity. It is there is no more nuance within a lot of these debates, and it's so unfortunate, because I think we could really make serious headway if there was nuance and open and intellectually honest conversation. Honestly, with this case, it is so important, especially with people that you disagree with, or you even dislike, to be mindful and especially honest with those people. It only is going to serve you better within that discussion when that person references that conversation and they're like, that person was straight with me, they were honest with me, they told me exactly what their opinion was, and they were not lying about it, they were respectful though. That's so important. Polarization, it's such a big problem, dude, of people, is groups running on the fear people feel. I know people who have been radicalized on both ends because of things they feared coming to life. Man, that is so true. I think that is a serious problem. I think we need to be very, very careful of that, because I think, like, I've used some anecdotes during this discussion, but I think certain anecdotal evidence is not going to give you the true form or shape of a thing or of a topic. So I think we need to be very mindful of that, and we need to also take those things with like a grain of sand. You're spot on. I think that there is, fear. I think that there's a lot of fear, and people are using that fear to manipulate what people think. That is absolutely true. And on both ends, I've seen it too, man. It's so hard to see. I suggest we all have a fun cookout and eat some barbecue. I love that. That sounds wonderful. And that's what I want to do here, is I'm going to start talking about not just, this is the opening conversation because I thought this was the most poignant for what I want to get across, which is having more open and honest conversations about some difficult topics. And again, this might end up not being the right platform for me. It may end up that I have to go somewhere else to be able to have more of these conversations. And if that's the case in the future, that's fine. I'd like to stay on Twitch. I'd like to be here. I'm already established a little bit here. And I think it's a user-friendly platform. So I do enjoy using Twitch. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to have this space so people can come here, chill out with each other, and eat some barbecue. That's really what I want. As I was saying, being honest with people, especially people that you disagree with or dislike, very important. Be more willing to change your mind when presented with new and better evidence and arguments. I personally tell myself this all the time. Don't get married to one idea, because as soon as you do, with each passing day, it becomes harder to leave it. So don't get married to any one idea, because as soon as you do, with each passing day, it becomes harder to leave it. Now, I'm not saying things like don't believe an apple is an apple. Don't believe that you got, two eyeballs or whatever it is. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if there are things that you don't think you necessarily know 100%, or even if you think you do, which, what does that even mean? Like, gravity's real. Like, I know gravity's real. If I drop this, right, it falls. Like, I know gravity's real, but how does it work in a lot of ways? I think there's a lot of we know a good amount about that. But what is it, right? There's so many things that we don't know. So I think being open to new and better evidence and arguments is very, very important. Not getting married to any one idea, in a lot of cases, can be very, very good for you, because you're able to take on new information, be open and really open-minded. I think having a platform to show both sides of a story and having some civil discourse on it could be nice. Hey, I appreciate that. That's what I'm trying to do. And I want to also create a space where, even if there is a little bit of contention, which I am okay with, I happen to like a little bit of contention, because I gain new perspective through contention in some ways and through some disagreements. I want people to be able to talk about things that are important to them. I want people to be able to open up and have honest and civil conversation, even if there's some disagreement. And I know it's so hard to do on the internet, but I know the type of person I am, and if there's anybody that could do it, I believe that I could do it. So I want to be able to do it. I want to try. I want to be able to have some of these conversations. And I thought Nuance and civil discourse was a very, very good opening discussion to have. I have many, many more lined up, and I would definitely, go back to this conversation. I definitely would have a part 2 this conversation, because I think it is a very, very important one. So changing your mind, right? Or having an open mind when engaging in conversation isn't a bad thing, right? People have this obsession with like sticking to your guns or being consistent. And I think people kind of mix that up a little bit. And to me, all that means is that you're stubborn and more likely to be wrong. That's just how I feel about just plain wrong about quite a few things. But you can still be consistent, right? And allow yourself to change your mind. You just consistently allow for new information as it's discovered. There's nothing inconsistent about that. This next thing, what I'm about to say, is very important. When you allow yourself to change your mind, or at the very least allow for the possibility of having your mind changed, it allows you to really listen. And when you really listen, you really hear. And when you really hear, you really understand. And when you really understand, new perspectives form and respect can be given back and forth. Okay, that's really, really important. I'll say that again. We can absolutely do that. I think as this grows, I think being able to engage with the community in whatever way I can, allow people to, even if they don't want to speak up, at least vote on something. Hey, this is the side I'm taking, this is the stance I'm taking, or I'm neutral in a certain way. And I think that's okay. If you're neutral, I think that's fine. I don't think you necessarily need to take a position on everything. That's another thing I'll mention later on. You do not need to take a position on everything. Not everybody needs to hear your opinion on every topic. There's so much that I don't know anything about rocks. I don't talk about rocks, right? I don't tell people, oh, that's an igneous rock. Oh, that's a whatever that is, whatever. I don't even know much. That's sedimentary rock, sedimentary rock. I think that's a thing. But I don't tell people my opinions about rocks because I don't know shit about rocks. I think that's important. But I like this a lot. I like that idea. I have a lot of ideas to work out in terms of topics to discuss, but I really like the idea of allowing people to be like, all right, this is the side I'm going to defend, and then we'll put it to a vote. We'll let people exchange ideas, let people think about it, talk, we'll chat about it, and then at the end, people could vote. And if they're still on the same side, it'll be interesting to see, because people might flip. People like, you know what? That person had a really good point. I'm changing my mind. Because that'll be cool to see. That is the type of stuff that I want to see. Because I know changing your mind can happen. Because I've done it. I've done it many, many times. I want to say this one more time and then we'll move on. When you allow yourself to change your mind, or at the very least, allow the possibility of having your mind changed, it allows you to really listen in a conversation. And when you really listen, you really hear the other person. And when you really hear the other person, you really understand them. And when you really understand them, new perspectives form and respect can be given back and forth. It's important. The ability to change your mind, right? The ability to at least allow for the possibility, to allow for new information to be given and received. This is really important. Too many times people just jump straight to whatever it is they think they know, and they don't hear people out. When I say that this is, really an important point to me, I really do mean it. If you go into every conversation believing that you already have the answers to anything and everything that may arise within that conversation, you can often miss crucial pieces of information, crucial insights that you may not have considered otherwise. It's also a horrible way to debate, thinking that you already have the answers, everything, because you're not hearing the other person. You need to really hear the other person in order to respond to what they're saying in a meaningful way. Now, there's obviously a difference between being prepared and unprepared. And I'm not saying people shouldn't do research or prep work, in order to be, prepared or ready to respond to any sort of point in a discussion or debate or whatever it is. What I am saying is, if you're unable to really hear someone, if you're unable to gain a new perspective through listening with intent, mutual understanding is almost impossible. If you already have all the answers, if you already know everything, if there's no reason for you to listen or think about anything at all, you're not gonna understand that person, and they're very likely not gonna understand you either. I want to continue to give people the opportunity to just talk about things that are important to them and feel like they're not necessarily going to be ridiculed for it. If we start having really good conversation and people are in here and they're saying something that's important and they get ridiculed, that person's just going to be banned. I'm just going to ban, if you're going to ridicule somebody for trying to be honest and really, really say something that's meaningful to them, you're not going to be welcome here. You will not be welcome here. I will not have that. I will not have anybody ridiculed or shamed for being honest. If you disagree with them, that's one thing, but I will not put up with ridicule or insults. It's bullshit. I don't mind cussing. I don't mind people getting into it or saying, no, I disagree. That's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to hear insults. I don't want to hear people being degraded. That won't do. It'll be simple. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what it'll be. That's exactly what it'll be. I'll have to update the chat rules because of I'm updating my stream, so I definitely have to update the chat rules. No ridicule, no insults. That won't do. People can get heated. People, like I said, cuss, swear. I don't care. You can get wild, but we're not gonna have name calling. We're not gonna have ridicule. That won't do. When you start using name calling, I think I write this in here. When you start name calling somebody, you've lost. If you're name calling, you're insulting, you're ridiculing, you've lost. Doesn't even matter if you think your point is better or other people. You've lost. You've lost everything. Listening with intent. Listening with intent. This is an important thing. So listening with intent. Okay, have a goal in mind when having conversations, and this is important. Not always, right? Little things, but even in little conversations, it can be useful. Like, hey, I want to get a smile out of this person. Hey, or hey, I'd really love to know more about this person's background, where they came from. Do they have any siblings, things like that. And really focus on listening. Listen to what they're saying. If you ask somebody a question, listen. This is important. Usually the best debaters, the best, conversationalists, the most charismatic people in the world are all great listeners. This is proven. They find common ground or good places to interject through the most minute details, right? So listen better and really hear what someone else is saying, okay? Who are they? What has their experience been, right? How does it differ from yours? Can you understand why they hold the opinions they do through the words they use, right? The stories they tell. All of these things are really, really important. Are you able to sympathize or empathize in a way that's constructive, that creates common ground? All these things are important to consider when having conversations, and in most cases will lead to better conversations and more mutual understanding, which is, all things being equal, a good thing. I've sort of made this point already, but I want to bring it back up here and make it a little bit more clearly. Not arguing in good faith is bad, right? Just so everyone's on the same page here, a good faith argument is one in which both parties actually believe the things they're saying, and not just arguing for argument's sake or arguing to elicit a reaction. Arguing in good faith is paramount to an open, honest conversation. If one or both sides don't believe in the things they're saying, they can come off as insincere or phony, right? I've seen it a 1,000 times. It can also be very evident when someone doesn't actually believe the shit falling out of their mouths. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people adopt personas or perspectives that don't actually represent who they are, what they believe, because they're incentivized to do so. Remember that? Other times, people argue a side they know to be false, but just wish it were true. Unfortunately, I believe this last point to be a really strong one that we're dealing with, and it's kind of what's plaguing a lot of our online discourse, unfortunately. I really firmly believe that a large number of people, maliciously or not, have intentionally distorted reality to such a degree that they either have tricked themselves into believing something they know to be false, and they really know that it's false, or they have lied to themselves with such frequency, with such intellectual ferocity, and have purposefully distorted their views of the world that they truly, in their heart of hearts, believe what they say because they wished it to be so. Okay, and I mean this. It happens on both sides of the aisle. See it in both cases. I'm not speaking about any person or group of people. I've seen this happen to both extremes, and it is really horrible. It's really horrible to see. This is objectively bad. Okay, this is not good. Lying to oneself rarely leads to a positive outcome. I think in some cases, you could say fake it till you make it. And in some cases, this can be useful, for sure. But on the whole, lying to yourself rarely leads to anything positive, okay? Another unfortunate factor here is that if social media has given megaphones to, unfortunately, some of the most unwell people among us, and it has cheered them on with vigor and enthusiasm. People that should be receiving professional treatment for their illnesses are leading discussions in a lot of ways, and it's twisted and it's kind of insidious in some really disgusting ways. I just think of people that truly need help, that are being coaxed and applauded deeper and deeper into their illness, and instead of someone being honest with them and them having the wisdom to listen, people are constantly just being affirmed in their beliefs, and this is happening on both sides of the aisle. As I mentioned, I really want to make that clear. This is not a strictly right or left issue here. This bullshit is everywhere, and it's really, really sad to me. It's really sad to see, because I think social media has done a very serious disservice to a large number of people, and it's scary. They get encouraged into their delusions. It's so sad. I think it's so unfortunate. I've seen it time and time again, and you're right, they do get encouraged. A lot of people do get encouraged, and that to me is the one of the saddest parts, is that you have somebody that is probably a little confused, probably, struggles in some way, whether it's with depression or anxiety or social anxiety, whatever it is, and being told that their delusions are the correct way to think is just, it's sad. And really what I think here is I think people are in need of good friends. I think, someone that isn't going to tell you what you want to hear, someone's going to it's going to be, someone that's going to tell you what you need to hear, right? Someone that will actually hold you accountable and call you out on your bullshit. This is a true friend. I'm lucky to have like a handful of those in my life. I probably got 2 or 3 that call me out on my bullshit, maybe a couple more than that, but like good friends. And I'm lucky as hell to have that, to even have that. A friend who is, someone that is looking out for you even when you won't look out for yourself, or you can't look out for yourself. A friend is someone who is honest and compassionate, but won't shy away from the tough conversations. So much of what makes us who we are stems from the relationships we have with the people around us. And we must have the wisdom to listen to them, right? And really hear these people. We owe that to ourselves. If we have good friends or family or people that we really trust in our lives, and they know us well, when they tell us things like, hey, you should really hold up, back off on this, or I notice you've been doing this, is everything okay? You should listen to them, and you should be honest with them. And it's not necessarily for them, it's for you. You owe it to yourself to have somebody hold you accountable, because as human beings, we are weak in many ways, and we need people in our lives that are also gonna help us along. We are social creatures. We have evolved socially. We are driven socially in so many ways, and it is an extremely important factor. We absolutely owe it to ourselves to listen to the people in our lives. And if you don't have somebody like that, I know it's so difficult, but I urge you to put yourself out there in whatever way that you feel comfortable, and try to find closeness and bonds, and start small. If there's try to find a connection. If there's somebody that you think, hey, maybe we could have a connection here, maybe we could be good friends, start with something small, just tiny. Hey, I noticed that you happen to like this movie or this game or this show, or you read this book or whatever it is, and I didn't notice that you also cared about this thing that I care about. You can say it however you want to say it, but hey, let's talk about XYZ. Start there. As a comment, unfortunately with social media, it kind of narrows the type of people you engage
with. That's true. Like-minded people stick together. True. And affirm one another, whereas in the real world you get a diverse group of views, whether it's friend groups in real life or workplace. Absolutely agree with that. In reality, it's hard to manifest, and whereas online it's kind of merry-go-round of perpetual delusion. You are not wrong. I think that this is absolutely correct. I think with social media, it absolutely does put groups together. It creates more of that tribal aspect, which is not necessarily a good thing. I think it's mostly a bad thing. But I agree. In the real world, for the most part, you're getting a diverse group. You're not just going to run into people that you agree with 24/7. It's just impossible. Online, because of algorithms, they'll direct you, right? They'll direct you in the way that you've kind of told the algorithm, hey, this is what I like, this is where I'd like to go, this is what I like to hear. I generally make it a point in both YouTube and Twitter, which are the only platforms I really use. I make it a point to follow and subscribe to a plethora of different people with different ideas, so I'm not just hearing the same bullshit over and over. It's sad. There should be some push for encouraging this sort of thing in a community base. It's hard to implement. I agree. It is really difficult. It is really hard to implement. I agree with that. I think what we need to do is, as honestly, and I'm not necessarily trying to take this on myself, but we need to encourage more open and honest conversation. We need to encourage people to, find people and that actually care about them, that are interested in them. And if you have good friends and family already, that it's important to listen to them when they say that they're worried or that they care or whatever it is. When it comes to the algorithm, it absolutely directs where people get their information. They get a lot of the same regurgitated stuff. They all see the same things. So for me, I've made it a huge point, and I rather enjoy it to get all the different perspectives. I also think that even if I were to, in one case, be leaning more this way on a certain topic, I want to know what the other side is saying, because I want to know what the whole frame of the thing is. If I'm only getting half of the story, I'm not really getting anything. I'm really pigeonholing myself. Gotta get the full story. I have to hear what the other side is saying on any given issue, because it gives me the full picture. Oh, they made a really, really good point. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even have that perspective until I read that, until I heard that. That is important. People need to they owe it to themselves to have a breadth and to consume a multitude of different content. I definitely want to stress that. It is really important to have good friends. Don't take them for granted. One more thing I'd like to point out, something that would definitely improve the quality of discourse, right? And I want to always come back to solutions. This is also something that I need to constantly remind myself of, and constantly remind anybody that's going to come here and listen and watch, is to stay solution focused. I definitely want people to always think about, okay, this is the problem. We've diagnosed it. Let's not beat it anymore. We've identified it. Let's go ahead and think about how we can make this better, right? People get shamed and silenced by the opposition, unfortunately, and that kind of narrows perspectives overall. That is exactly what I said earlier on in this conversation. That is exactly what I said earlier on in the conversation. It is really awful that people have felt like they've been silenced. Yeah, what I said was essentially is that we've basically pushed people to less and less savory avenues, right? Both in the real world and online, just so they can have the freedom to discuss their beliefs and opinions without being ostracized and insulted at every turn. This is an objectively bad situation to be in. So I agree with that. There need to be more patience, so true, and to try and come from a place of understanding rather than hate. Man, said it. You said it. That is absolutely spot on. People need to be more patient with others, and they need to be more understanding. I mean, we're all just trying to figure out life here on this planet. We're all just figuring it out as we go. We're trying to figure it out, what it is we're doing here. Wait. Oh, here it is. So, to not have compassion, to not approach people with kindness and compassion as your first cards you lay down, I don't understand it. I don't get that. I'm always a huge advocate for compassion in every possible case. So I think I completely agree with that. Understanding is so important, but I absolutely agree with that. We are forcing people down horrible paths, and I think it's dangerous and it's scary for a lot of these people that feel like they're being pushed out. One thing, and here we go. This literally was my next point. Either what you just said was literally my next point on here. One thing I want to point out, something that, again, would definitely improve the quality of our discourse, and that's reducing overall hostility, right? We are way too quick to anger. Obviously, we're all human beings, so it's what we do. But we are way too quick to insults when a conversation isn't going our way or is getting heated, right? This is not a good intuition. It really isn't. Plus, it's an easy way to spot when someone is losing an argument, right? If you move straight to insults, in my view, you've lost. If somebody's making good, poignant arguments, they're saying it clearly, calmly, they're not getting, defensive, they're not getting too heated or angry, and they're telling you everything, bang, 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 and you start insulting someone, you've lost. Doesn't matter what you say from then on. Your argument's fucked. You're done. GG. Peace. So I don't understand that. We need to cut the hostility. We need to approach things, as Loop said, with more understanding rather than hate, rather than thinking that we know exactly what that person is thinking, rather than thinking we know exactly what's happening. That is a huge thing here. So one thing I wanted to point out was this tweet I have in the background, and I can make this, I can make myself a little bit smaller so people can see it. Now, I don't want to hate on this person. I didn't blur it out because I'm not doing that. If people are going to say things online, out in the public, I'm going to call them out. They said this online in public. I don't blur shit out. I don't know why people do that. If somebody tweets something or said something, I know people get harassed and it's ridiculous, but there's only a couple people watching today, so I don't think anybody's going to get harassed. Even so, if you post something online, you should be ready for scrutiny. You should be ready to be picked apart in whatever way anybody decides they want to do that, within reason, right? I don't think people should be going to things with hate, but trying to understand this. Now, this is one of those situations where I've tried to look at this from her perspective, and I was able to. And I was able to gain a lot of different perspectives, but I do think ultimately her overall point was not a good one. I think it was ultimately a really, really shit one, actually. And there is much, much more I have written on this, but I don't know if I'm going to share it here tonight. I think when I talk about the loneliness pandemic, and both male and female, I think I'll come back to this, male loneliness. Huge influx. Hold on. That's why the huge influx of these kind of radical views from community members online, kind of leads to these galvanized views, and unfortunately some people with warped worldviews get huge followings and support. So true. Of course, it's people's choice of what they consume online and in real life. Groups will prefer harassment and belittlement over actual intelligent conversations, and peons, gang pile, etc. Pile on until the opposition is silenced. Is very sad, man. You hit the nail on the head, and that is bad. That is what I want to combat. That is literally exactly why I'm doing this. That in a nutshell is what I want to rage against with these conversations and with this channel. Fuck that shit. If you are somebody you are going to disagree with somebody about something, okay, this is America. I don't give a shit. Go ahead, disagree. But if you are berating someone, if you are trying to silence somebody, you're going straight to insults and hatred and belittlement over actually speaking on your argument, sharing your opinion like a coherent adult. I don't want to know you. You can eat my nuts for all I care. That is the worst type of person. Now, that's the type of person I will get contentious with. That is the type of person I will call out. That is the type of person I don't care. And that person, the type of person that will go straight to the worst type of insults and nasty shit and trying to dox people and all that,
No, I don't play. Those people can fuck right off. No. That is exactly what I want to fight against. Because a lot of those people, the activists, all them, they're loud. They're the loudest ones. I can get loud too. So, it takes social maturity, but how would you suggest waking people up to this? I think this is the biggest start. I think I've shared quite a few things, and when I'm done, I'll wrap up with my final ways to improve the discourse. I listed a few during this conversation, and I think the discourse needs to change. So like the way people like what opinions people have comes from discourse they've seen, whether it was tweets and people online, or whether it was a YouTube videos they saw, or movies they watch, or shows they watch, or news, or whatever it is. They consume certain media, they take on these opinions. If we can open up more dialogue and more conversation in different ways, and people can be more conscious when they're speaking with people listen with intent. These are the first steps, in my opinion, for us to get better. Because if we're not able to even have conversations with each other honestly, then and I hate to say this, but people don't realize the next stage is violence. That's how it goes. When words don't work, that's the next stage that it goes to. And it has, in a lot of ways, all over this country, has led to violence. That is not good. It's the farthest thing from good. Our ancestors struggled. They had to be violent for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, to get us to this point. We have airplanes, and we have submarines, and we have jets that can fly hundreds of miles. I mean, we can go into outer space. There's people floating around orbiting the Earth right now. People need thicker skin. Agreed. We cannot allow feelings to rule the day. It can't happen. And learn how to sit still and listen before jumping to arms. That's why I think listening is so important, because if you listen to people, you can understand. You can get a feel for what it is that's important to them. And this is what I said about how to learn how to sit still and listen before jumping, right? When you allow yourself to listen, when you allow yourself to change your mind, right, or let the possibility of having your mind changed, right, it allows you to really listen. And when you really listen, you really hear. And when you really hear, you really understand. And when you really understand, new perspectives form and respect can be given back and forth. There's a huge population of people that refuse to acknowledge what they know to be the right way of engaging together. I guess it's human nature to be volatile. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But the thing is that even though the loudest among us are the ones that a lot of times get airtime, and they're the ones that are that because they're the loudest, right? They're the ones that are in your face and saying the most outlandish, ridiculous bullshit. The problem is that there's too many people that think those views that are being held hold the majority view. Too many people think that that's what a lot of people actually believe and actually think, and I think it's way less than that. But it skews normal. People that are right in the middle and generally find themselves in the middle, it skews their beliefs and their thoughts, because they're constantly inundated with delusions in a lot of ways, and it makes for a more volatile situation, as you said. And human nature is to be aggressive in a lot of ways. There is no doubt about that. We are an aggressive species. We would not have made it this far if we were not. It is in our nature. But I really want to just briefly touch on this post here. I hope people can read it okay. This was a response, and again, I understand her perspective. I truly do. I was able to understand her perspective through reading more of her tweets in this thread, but I fundamentally disagree with what she says here. But I do hear and completely understand her rage and her anger, and I completely understand why she is tired of hearing about a lot of this, because a lot of it is total bullshit. I completely agree, and I think a lot of people I think a lot of people just have not been able to grow the fuck up. People haven't been able to grow up. People don't have wisdom. People don't have patience. And that's why it has led to where we're at. And I think that's why, I fully understand where she's coming from here. So this is in response to somebody tweeting, I just have a portion of it. Well, it looks like I have it all. But the Texas mall shooter posted he wanted sex, not a girlfriend, because he didn't believe in love anymore. He also suggested everyone who says sex is not a big deal needs to be forced into celibacy or die. Oof. Our study of sexually frustrated mass shooters dissects this issue. So this person, they did a study. I read it a while back, but I should actually probably go through it again. But they did a study of sexually frustrated mass shooters. And I think this is a common issue. Okay? Now, what she says and how she responds to this is, I'm so fucking tired of people trying to make quote-unquote male loneliness. I don't understand the quotes. As if male loneliness or loneliness in general isn't real. Like, what the fuck is with the quotes? So I fundamentally disagree with what she says. But again, I understand her perspective. A huge societal problem. She's tired of people trying to make male loneliness a huge societal problem. You basically are arguing that there is no problem here. It's not a societal problem. It might be a problem, but it isn't fucking society's problem. That is crazy to me. That is an insane thing to say, especially when a lot of women, and I agree with them, want men and anybody and everybody else to care about female issues, as we should, as men should. Not because they're screaming about, no, because it's the right thing, because it's the right thing to do, because caring about whatever issues women happen to be facing it's an extremely important thing. There is one thing I wanted to bring up here, because I did have a little bit more to say on this. Not a lot. I have probably a lot more written actually down in my phone. And this will be a topic of discussion in the future. Male loneliness, or just the loneliness pandemic, because it isn't just men. It is not just men. That is a fact. There are a lot of lonely women out there. A lot of them. I feel horrible. I do want to finish the tweet, though, really quickly. Let me finish the tweet. Male loneliness is not a societal problem. I know so many women who are virgins, haven't been in a relationship or even kissed anyone. None of them are violent or wish bad on men. Loneliness doesn't make you kill. Wow. She said that shit with her chest. I mean, come on. I mean, listen, there are... The one point I do agree with is that, of course, women in general, whether they're virgins or haven't been in a relationship or even kissed anyone, none of them are violent or wish bad on men. Men are completely different in this way than women are. So much different. We are very, very different. Now, I will say, I agree that loneliness doesn't make you kill. That I agree with. I don't think loneliness by itself makes you kill, for sure. But I think loneliness can be a huge factor to someone's overall displeasure with life. They are displeased with life. But let me just say this, because I do think this is important, and I'll probably have to say this again, but this is an arrogant thing to say, and it's kind of ignorant, and it's just flat out wrong. It's kind of an awful response to what is most certainly a huge societal issue, to just ignore 50% of the population because you don't understand the situation or even care to understand. That's completely evident. But that doesn't take away from the fact that 50% of the population are men, and men, especially young men, are really not doing well. This is a societal issue. Without men, we can't do so much of what we do, infrastructure, and you kind of need men to have the kids, and you need the women, right, you need both of these things.
And it's not just about extending the human race and securing the next generation. It's not even just about that. It's about the quality of life for people. This is important. I'm not going to get too much deeper into this because I do want to probably end here pretty soon. But my question is, are you honestly trying to argue that women are inherently just as violent as men are? Because that's the argument, is that I know so many women who are virgins, haven't been in a relationship or even kissed anyone. None of them are violent or wish bad on men. Loneliness is amazing. So again, and some of this is even like, I understand what you're saying, but it's just completely missing the boat and completely missing the point. First and foremost, it completely lacks compassion at all. To say, I'm so fucking tired of people trying to make male loneliness, quote unquote, a huge societal problem. So you want everybody to be compassionate for you and whatever you have going on, but fuck men. Got it. This woman clearly has zero compassion for the struggles of men, and more importantly, the modern man, which this is basically what we're talking about. She's trying to argue that, this is the second point, she's trying to argue that men and women are the same, an argument that has been all too prevalent nowadays. She's essentially arguing that if women can keep from, doing X, why can't men keep from doing X? Which is just to say, men and women think the same and do the same things, and they don't. They, react to stimuli the same, they react to rejection the same, they react to love the same, to physical contact and affection the same, which is not the case. It's just not the case, and I'm sorry for, if that's hard for people to hear, but it's just not the case. And men and women react to loneliness in very different ways. The third point I'd like to make, which is one that women don't seem to understand or pretend to care about, is that we don't think about these things in the same way, and men and women don't view sex in the same way. She's arguing essentially that, that sex is not a human need. Now, I'm not saying you are entitled to it, but it is still a human need. She's arguing that it isn't a male need, more importantly. And, to be this ignorant and this naive, it's just sad, that clear that nobody mentioned to this woman that considering the feelings and needs of men is a good thing. And it's a kind thing and a compassionate thing to do. Again, I'm not saying that this person who is a shooter, wanted a girlfriend. This guy clearly had some serious mental issues. This person clearly had some problems. But if we're talking about the broad issue of male loneliness, not just specifically, mall shooters or school shooters, mass shooters, no, we're talking about the overall problem of loneliness. I completely understand her frustration or anger when it comes to this person, because this person's fucked up. This person clearly is not right. But I think applying this type of thinking to the overall problem is really dangerous, and it's really sad. And she does go on to say here, framing male violence as a response to men's loneliness is so fucking gross. You are not owed sex. You're right. Nobody is owed sex. But she doesn't understand what's happening here. Male violence as a response to men's loneliness. They're directly correlated. So if somebody is aggressive but hasn't touched a woman and is not in a good mental space, their loneliness and complete departure from reality is a problem. It's a problem. And to just be this cold and heartless about it, it's just kind of crazy. And agreed, you are not owed sex. That's a fact. That, of course, is a fact. I'm not arguing that. She goes on to say other things, points out misreading a tweet is very obviously blah, blah, blah. Lots of women praise evidently struggling with loneliness and romantic sex, and I feel for you. It sucks. But a romantic relationship isn't going to fix your problems, and you can't expect a woman to do that. Friends won't fix that either. I mean, I agree. If somebody is mentally unwell, a relationship, friends, that's not going to necessarily help the situation at all. So that, I don't disagree with some of the points, but fundamentally, I just disagree with the cold nature of what she's saying. And when it comes to some of these other things, when it comes to like some of these other points being made, like all this is like a complete lack of nuance. There's no nuance here. There is no deep conversation happening here. But let's go ahead and wrap up the conversation, everybody. I've really, really enjoyed this one. I've had fun. I went on a little bit of a tangent. This is because I'm very, very passionate about that one too. I think the loneliness pandemic is a huge problem, and it's not just men, it's women as well. And it's scary, and it's sad. I feel bad for a lot of these people. And loneliness I've dealt with, and it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thing to have to endure. We are social creatures. I've said that, and I'll say it a million times. We are very social, and to not have that in your life is very hard. And so for those people, I feel for them. Should we be giving pity to school shooters and mass shooters? No, not in the sense that, we should feel bad that they have the mind that they do have. We should feel bad that they were led to the point where they felt like they needed to do that. And we should feel bad that they were in an environment in which nobody noticed. How could you not notice? How could you not notice somebody that is in such pain and is so lonely that that they're about to go take their own life or somebody else's life? I guess it's hard to see, but I feel bad for anybody that's in that environment. I really do. But ultimately, we will be talking about this problem in the future. I don't know if that'll be next stream or in the coming weeks, but that is one that we will absolutely talk about regularly, because it is a huge problem, and I fear for not just this country, but I just fear for people completely. On the whole, I really do worry about loneliness and the loneliness problem. But a few other little points I wanted to make, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. So, as I mentioned, there are things that you can do, specifically the actions you can take to improve the discourse in your life, right? Any conversations that you have, whether it's with people online, in YouTube comments or in Twitter comments, or it's with somebody in real life, when you're talking to somebody. These are important things to think about, okay? So first, reducing hostility, okay? If you're finding yourself getting angry at something, take a deep breath, relax a second, think about what this other person is saying, calmly ask them, is this where you're coming from? Just so I understand where you're coming from. Is this what you're saying? Is this your opinion? Is this what you... Okay, that is... Okay, well, this is where I disagree, or this is how I disagree and why. And it doesn't need to go to insults and, bashing people back and forth. It does not need to go to belittlement and absolutely flaming each other. It does not need to go to that. So we'll reduce hostility wherever you can. Listen with intent. Okay? When you go into a conversation, listen with the purpose. Listen with trying to learn something about the other individual. Listen with intent. Okay? Intentionally think about what the other person is saying. It will lead to deeper understanding, and it will lead to, hopefully, some sort of common ground, or at the very least, some sort of mutual experience that you can use as a stepping stone to some sort of common ground, if that's what your goal is. But listening with intent is important. Being more honest in your everyday dealings, being more honest in the conversations that you have with people. If you believe something, you really believe it, stick to those points. If you don't believe something, don't say it, right? That is very important, for sure. Allowing yourself to have an open mind, allowing yourself to be able to change your mind, not necessarily thinking I'm going to go into this and I'm definitely going to listen to what the other person says and that's going to be my new opinion. No, go into conversations knowing that there's a possibility that you could have your mind change, and be open to that. It allows, again, for more deeper understanding and an ability to find common ground with people. Always ensuring good faith arguments. As I was saying before about being honest. Be honest with what you're saying. If you don't believe something, don't say it. Good faith arguments are the bedrock of an open and honest communication. And when all else fails, here's one: walk away. turn off the phone, shut the laptop, close your computer. If you're in somebody, you're talking to somebody in real life, and there's nothing you're gaining from this conversation, walk away, go away. No more time, no more energy needs to be wasted on somebody that refuses to even give you the time of day or even attempt to understand you. Not worth your time. So just walk away, right? That's the one final way to improve discourse, or at least the last one, avoid awful conversations, right? It's just walk away. And you do not need to have an opinion on every single topic. It's another thing I want to stress. That's definitely important. You do not need to have an opinion on every single topic. If, right, you don't know anything, sometimes your opinion just isn't fucking valid. It just isn't worth knowing. Maybe sit this one out. If you have no personal experience or wealth of knowledge to refer to, you don't need to comment, right? Sometimes your opinion is just better left in your head and nowhere else. That's important to remember. Don't forget that. You do not need to be commenting on every single thing. Sometimes you just let it go. Whether you agree, disagree, I don't have a comment on it. Let it go. Sometimes the, it's understanding that it isn't about you in all cases. Sometimes the person you're conversing with is off their rocker and is completely lost their mind. And in that case, there is no good reason for you to engage with this person. Unless your goal is to increase blood pressure and elevate your levels of stress, get the fuck out of there. There's no reason to engage with people that are going to stress you out, that you're not getting anywhere with, and will not give you the time of day, won't be intellectually honest with you, and won't be open. Some people are just not worth your time and energy, so know when it's time to walk away. So, this has been a really, really great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate people that did pop in and did comment. Loop, really, really appreciate it. Deadly, I appreciate you stopping in. It was awesome to see you pop in. Loop, I really do appreciate you engaging. Awesome comments. Thank you for popping in. And of course, to my good friend and always very supportive, Soulless Husk. Really, really appreciate you popping in. It's great talking to you. We'll definitely catch up soon. This was an awesome conversation. This was the first of many. Looks like we are right at 2 hours almost. It looks like an hour 58. So just under 2 hours, which I think is really, really solid. I think for a lot of these discussions, I want to be able to go like an hour to 2 hours. I think starting at 10 is what I'd like to do in the future. Go from 10 to midnight. And I think that's great. There may be a little bit of gaming in the future. That may be something I want to do or do again. But I think really I am very, very passionate about a lot of these topics, and I would love to have deeper conversations with people. I'm going to post a lot of this stuff on YouTube. I'll probably be creating more shorts and posting those, hopefully to drive more people here. And like I said, if Twitch ultimately turns out or ends up not to be the platform for me, if it turns out that going somewhere else so I can be more open with these types of conversations is what I need to do, then that's what I may need to do in the future. But at this point, I feel really good about where this conversation went today. This is the first of many. I have a lot of iterations and a lot of things that I'd like to do here. Solus had some good ideas about kind of predicting or throwing out predictions and having people vote, or holding a debate topic and having two sides, people predicting which side might win, and then having the discussion in chat, exchanging ideas, and at the end of it, people can vote on what they think was the better argument. Might have people flip-flopping. I think that's a great idea. It's a great way to engage. So I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be really fun. I think this is going to be exciting for me. So I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations. I hope you also look forward. I will update my schedule. I'm not entirely sure when I'll be streaming. Likely, mostly on the weekends. But I'm excited to continue this. I think there's a lot more incredible conversation to be had. I hope more and more people come and are willing to
to actually engage with me honestly and openly. It's the only path forward. It's the only way forward. It's the only way that we're going to progress. And before I drop off, I'm going to leave you with repeating one more little point that I wrote down that I really wanted to make sure everybody really got here, because I thought it was a very poignant one, and I thought it was important to share. So, when it comes to conversation and hearing somebody and being open-minded, right? When you allow yourself to change your mind, or at the very least, allow for the possibility of having your mind change in a conversation, it allows you to really listen. And when you really listen to another person, you really hear them. And when you really hear them, you really begin to understand them. And when you begin to understand them, new perspectives form, and respect can be given back and forth. This is really important. Thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate your time. Very excited to be back on soon. As I mentioned, I'll definitely put a lot of this content. I might just upload it all as one on YouTube and then create some shorts with it. But I'm excited. This has been fun. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'm Mr. Rod Jones. Everybody, have a great night. Thanks.